Hello again and welcome. Last episode, I spoke with Lisa Owens, one of the co-creators of the Learning Cluster Design Model, about the principles behind the Learning Cluster Design Model and how it has been received in the world of corporate and learning and development. Moving on, in this episode, I will be continuing my conversation with Lisa on the OKLCD model, going over the 5 action steps. Stay tuned to learn more. Again, Lisa, thank you very much for the breakdown of what the OKLCD model was and, touching on the 4 principles especially and how it kind of compares and not necessarily compares, but utilizes and integrates other models into it as an overarching model. I want to touch on to the 5 actions. Now, looking at the word cluster, which has been brought up frequently, I wouldn't naturally assume that it's an acronym just from looking at it as part of the titling, but in this case it is. Can you break down the acronym for us?
Sure, absolutely. Again, I'm a big believer in providing people with frameworks that help them remember. And if the core of the output of a learning cluster design is a cluster, I'd like the word cluster to help them remember what are the 5 actions. So we worked very hard on that prior to the publication of the book to accomplish that. So cluster, let me give you the first word of each of the actions, and it is change. Change on the job behavior. Learn, learner to learner differences. Upgrade, existing assets. Surround, learners with meaningful assets. Track, transformation of everyone's results. So cluster, change, learn, upgrade, surround, and track. There we go.
Beautiful. Thank you for that breakdown. I love acronyms. With that, I want to jump into each of these so we have a little bit more of a solid breakdown. We listed them twice, I believe, in episode 1, and then also now breaking down what that acronym was. So jumping into that, what is the goal of change on the job behavior? Is this geared towards the performance of learners in the organization?
It is. It's focusing on what behavior of the learners has to change in order to deliver the business result that is desired. We have to identify that. And it's not easy to identify it. Oftentimes, people will come to us and say, I need a course on, or I need a training on change management or time management or how to be a better leader or how to be a better manager. Well, that doesn't impact what is happening on the job. We're just leaving it to chance that people will understand how to apply it. We need to get more specific. What behavior do we need to see change on the job? And will that behavior make a difference for the business? Let's get clear on those 2 things, and then we can better move forward. So that's what the change on the job behavior focuses on. It does so by giving us a template in the change tool about a strategic performance objective. And the strategic performance objective brings together that business language with the behavior language so that we can create a better learning cluster to actually deliver.
Thank you for that. Yeah, when I was reading through the book, that sounded more like what it revolved around was more of the strategic aspect of what you were trying to accomplish as opposed to a learning asset. So now moving on to L out of cluster, what is the goal of learner to learner differences? Is this addressing how people learn differently from somewhat like the DISC models, personality types, or does it go beyond that? Or is it something else completely?
It is something else completely. When it comes to learning styles, that thinking has been disproved time and time again. In reality, people learn by doing. And that's plain and simple. Yes, some of us prefer reading or watching or listening or talking with people, but that's not the point. The point is, where are the learners when they need to learn? So we look at the 5 moments of learning need. And those 5 moments created by Mosher and Gottfredson are new, when you're learning the first time, more, when you want to learn more, apply, at the moment of apply, when you go to do something, what is it you need in order to actually do it? Change, when something changes, how are you going to have the tools to be able to respond in that moment of change? And solve, When something goes a little bit wrong or is a little different than what you're expecting, do you have the tools to do it? So if we look at our learners in that large target group and start to identify where their 5 moments of learning need are going to differ, that helps us identify our personas. Then we look at where are they physically when they want to learn. Some people will be learning on the job, and their job might be in an office, or it might be in a car, a salesperson on the road. It might be somebody on the factory floor. Where they are at their moment of learning need is going to impact what kind of learning assets we need to provide them. So where are they? Who are they? They might be the kind of person who needs to really think about it at home, and they want to take some materials home. Now, that doesn't apply to all workers because they're not allowed to take materials home, but let's assume that they could. What if it's somebody who has English as a second language and they really prefer to take their materials home and have a translator beside them, or have somebody else in their family help explain it to them in the English language or their language of their choice? So where are they going to be? Maybe it's somebody who prefers audio so they can go back and forth in the car and learn a little at a time and repeat the audio on a regular basis to make sure that they're performing on the job. So we need to dig deeper into what are the key learner personas. Now, there's one other thing. You could probably create 100 learner personas for all 100 participants in a course, but that's not the point. What we're looking for is what are the groups of participants that will most likely impact the business need. So let's marry that up. The person who knows most of the material isn't the person who's going to make the biggest difference. The person who doesn't know the material or who doesn't use the material that they know on the job, those are the personas we want to focus on. So we want to get to them physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever it is that it takes. That's the focus of our learning cluster learning assets.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that for me. It's completely different from my initial thoughts. Now, with that, I wanted to move on to the U aspect of cluster. What is the goal of upgrade existing assets? I'd assume it isn't just taking legacy content and repackaging it, making it digital. What does this step really entail?
It is a little bit of repackaging, but not entirely. What we're looking at is getting ourselves a quick start on whatever project we're working on. Let's take what we have already existing. In many cases, we already have 80% of the material out there. People are really surprised at that. But some research has been done that says the material you're trying to teach, somebody's already been out there trying to teach it. Go find that material and start there. The reason that material has not been used is often because it's outdated, or it isn't known to other people. It needs to be marketed better. So we take that material and we make sure that it's modern enough for the group that we're focused on. So there is a little bit of repackaging, but we use the 9 elements of modern learning, and we measure the existing asset against those 9 elements and give it a modernness score. Then we try to upgrade it using these 9 elements, thinking how we can add a few of these elements into the existing training and give it a new modernness score that's higher than the original. That's a quick upgrade and gets us started. It also, for the L&D instructional designers, gets them thinking more deeply about the learners that they're focused on and the upcoming surround action, where we're looking for additional learning assets. So by focusing on upgrading one learning asset, we start to prepare our own professionals for creating a learning cluster.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. What is the goal of surround the learners with meaningful learning assets? Based on the model provided in the book, it seems to be a bigger focus of this model. I'm sure that they're all important aspects, but this definitely took up a lot more space. So I was just curious.
Well, physically, it takes up more space in the model. It is a larger piece of the 5-part model, and it is the heart of the entire model. The whole point of the learning cluster design process is to create a learning cluster. And when we get to surround learners with meaningful learning assets, we are actually creating the learning cluster at that point. Now, we're looking at those 3 to 5 learner personas, the key learner personas, and we're choosing the learning assets to help them perform on the job with different behaviors. We're focused on finding learning assets that touch on 3 learning touch points. Do they have something that involves social, formal, and immediate? Now think about that. In L&D, we typically focus on formal training only. And the way we define formal in our case is that it's some kind of learning asset that has a start, has a finish, and if somebody got from start to finish, got to the end, you could decide to give them a certificate for it. So that's formal. Social, that's anything that involves people. And that includes classrooms. It includes comments on a social media piece. Social involves talking to a mentor. Anything that involves people is a social learning touch point. And the immediate learning touch point, most people jump to job aids, but it can also be websites. It can be whatever it is that is available to learners 24/7 or the whole time that they're on the job in order to help them with their job. So social, formal, and immediate, each learner persona typically needs a learning asset that addresses those 3 learning touch point needs. So then we confirm in the surround action that each persona has one of those, and together it will help them change on the job behavior to get the desired results. So we look for what's missing, what do we have that's duplicated, but we're making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed when we create that learning cluster.
Understood. Thank you. That helps clarify surround a lot more. Now let's move on to the last portion of it, which is the TER, which stands for track, everyone, and results. So what is the goal of track transformation of everyone's results?
The goal is to decide if we have succeeded at what we set out to do. Now, it's so funny. So many people stop right after they create their learning cluster at the surround and say, I'm done. I reached the finish line. It's like, really? How do you know you succeeded? How do you know where the finish line is if you don't measure it? And we're really helping people focus on just do it. It's simple math, and we encourage you to use a little simple math and a lot of stories. So find ways to find the stories in your success. What do learners have to say about what's going on? Can you use those stories to enhance the quantitative measures you've got so that the data becomes real? We're looking at levels 1 through 4 of evaluation using Kirkpatrick's level 4 plus Phillips level 5 of ROI and add the stories together. Now we're working on evolving this action because too many of our users are still stopping after the surround action. So we want to take them back to the change action where we originally decided here are the behaviors we want to change so that it'll impact this KPI for the business. We've got to close the loop and say, yes, we have truly succeeded. That's what track transformation of everyone's results is all about. This ability to track our success or learn from it so we can continue to improve. This is what's needed for us in L&D to become true professionals who contribute to the business through our expertise in learning and development.
It's good that we touched on that because it's in the name, track transformation of everyone's results. It seems a little bit self-explanatory, but I feel it's important to touch on what the actual goal of what you're tracking is. I feel like there's a lot that comes out of track, not just for the direction that the L&D team can go or, redesign or remodel however they need to based on what the learners are experiencing. Well, again, thank you, Lisa, for sharing what the 5 action steps of the OKLCD model are and for breaking them down. In our next episode, we'll discuss potential pushback and relevant use cases of the model. Until next time.